Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And we will be going in and get started. So thanks, Deborah. Take it away.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Deborah McGrath. I'm a Senior Technical Product Marketing Manager with ServiceNow, and I'll be hosting our webinar today. The subject is Project to Product, How to Enable Enterprise Agility. And joining me is Jeremy Kahn. Jeremy, if you could advance. And Jeremy is a ServiceNow solution consultant with our IT business management practice. Jeremy will be our lead speaker, and he'll also provide a live demo. He'll also be joined by Blair LaCour, Senior Advisory Solution Consultant with the ITBM Practice, who'll provide commentary and his thoughts along the way. Following the demo, we'll give you a list of Agile resources, and we'll wrap up with a Q&A for a few minutes afterward. First, a quick mention about Safe Harbor. Please keep in mind that this presentation may contain forward-looking statements that reflect the current beliefs of ServiceNow, all based on current information available. And these forward-looking statements should not be relied upon in making purchasing decisions. I'd like to introduce Jeremy Kahn and Blair.
Thanks, Deborah. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremy Kahn. I'm a solution consultant based out of San Diego, California, within our ITBM Practices group. And we're going to be covering a couple of things here in today's webinar demonstration and presentation. So going through a couple of slides as well as the demo for today. So just covering strategic demand versus ongoing demand, going from the full-fledged project to the end product, the differences between Waterfall and Agile, and how that can really enable your enterprise to maneuver through enterprise agility and enable that, as well as the 3 modes of Agile, and we'll cover the demo straight after that. So before we go ahead and get started, I wanted to go ahead and take a quick poll. So we can go ahead and take some time. If you will, please feel free to answer some of the questions that you see on your screen here. Just a quick couple of questions, what your experiences with ServiceNow is, as well as what your experience with ServiceNow ITBM is. So we'll give a couple of minutes just to take this quick poll real quick.
Okay, votes are still coming in. Come on, guys, here we go. Here we go, coming in now. We've got a balance. We've got some folks that are very unfamiliar with ServiceNow, some that have used ServiceNow outside of ITBM, and then some that are using ITBM as well. And we'll share the results here in a second. Votes are still coming in. And let me go ahead and share the results. So yeah, we can see we've got a balance today with some folks just very little exposure to ServiceNow, some with a lot of exposure within ITBM, some outside of ServiceNow, and then within ITBM also it looks like we've got some exposure in every area of ITBM outside of Scaled Agile Framework. So we'll definitely be able to learn more about that today. So thanks everybody for telling us a little bit more about yourselves. We'll have another poll in a couple moments here. Okay, Jeremy.
Jeremy, not sure if you're on mute still. We can't hear you.
Oops, sorry about that. Okay, I can go ahead and start over here. So yeah, thanks everybody for taking that poll. I just came off mute. And what I really want to get into here is just a couple of precursor slides to really preface the demo that we're going to be taking a look at. Really, this slide is really around that top-down strategy. So really the top-down strategy established by your executives, really aligning to the company's investments, to portfolios and programs, with the hope of really delivering the most value to your customers. So these strategic portfolios really help to deliver the vision of the strategic leaders in your business. And to really support this and in IT initiatives, what are the funding plans? What are the investment plans around this? So we're going to take a look at how ServiceNow can really help and aid in that transformative journey. So you can see that not all work is strategic by nature. Our organizations also must focus on those sort of operational and tactical tasks, whether or not it's strategic work or operational work. The work that's being planned, it needs to be prioritized and delivered and managed across sort of various departments and various methods. So we're going to see in today's presentation how we can take sort of this traditional sort of waterfall methodology and transition that into a more sort of agile approach. Now, at the top level, what you can see here, the strategic investments are typically aligned to business objectives here. So including getting new products into the market, creating services or products that give the company an advantage, etc. And this essentially makes customers both internal and external happy. So being able to have that transparency for your customers, analyze the outcomes and objectives of your projects and products. And at the operational level below, you'll also notice that there's constant and daily demand for your IT teams, really focusing on activities like enhancements, problems, maintaining current tech stacks, rationalizing applications, as well as business services here. So we can also go ahead and take a quick pause here to do the second poll. We're going to go ahead and just launch that. So another couple of quick questions. What methodologies are you currently using in your company, in your enterprise, as well as the first one is personal, and then the second one is what are you using in your daily work environment today? So methodologies for, there we go.
And we left email and conversations in the hallway out in terms of common methodologies. We knew that would get a lot of votes. But basically, what are you personally using between Waterfall, Scrum, Kanban, SAFe, or some sort of operational work? And then as an organization, what all those processes are in place as well? And then really to tie this back to the slide, go ahead and end the poll and can share the results. Really to tie this back to the slide that Jeremy was just speaking to, everybody's using multiple methodologies, multiple tool sets on the top for our strategic things, and then also our operational things on the bottom, which further creates challenges in the disconnect between the run the business and change the business. So thanks for taking that poll as well.
Awesome. Close that up. Thanks, Blair. So like Blair mentioned at the bottom, there's really a disconnect between your sort of strategic initiatives as well as the sort of ongoing and operational demand at the business for your company. And this really often results in a disconnect between for your IT organization. So the end result is disconnect from the overall IT business strategy. Now, the traditional sort of organization is really, the traditional organization really is a static and siloed structural hierarchy. So you have those sort of goals and decisions that flow down the hierarchy, as you can see at the bottom here, and it operates relatively through a linear and planning and sort of siloed planning approach. And to really control and capture value for shareholders, this structure is really solid, but very slow moving, can't really adapt very quickly. So in contrast, we're taking a look at sort of your agile organization and how this can transform your business. So this is really around centered around teams. So really people-centered culture that operates in a rapid learning and fast decision cycle sort of methodology, and this is enabled by your technology. So this is really guided by a powerful common purpose to really co-create value for all your stakeholders, such as an agile operating model. So you can really quickly and efficiently reconfigure the strategy, the structure, the processes, people, and technology, because more often than not, you're going to have sort of changes or bumps in the road that do occur in your product or sort of project lifecycle. So our approach at ServiceNow is really to leverage a platform here, really to centralize your demands for both strategic initiatives like your new product development, digital transformation, or customer experience programs, as well as your demand from operational work. So like incidents, problems, maintenance. And with all of that IT, you have your business and application portfolio, program, and project work in one centralized location. We can help leverage that to decrease costs from an operational work and grow the strategic initiatives, since IT now has a full picture of both operational and strategic demand. Oops. So in one platform, teams can really collectively prioritize, plan and execute work across across their traditional projects, or whether or not you decide to use the agile or scaled agile and hybrid methodology as well in your daily work. It really is up to your business in ensuring that you're able to solve that disconnect between your strategic work and operational work, really by centralizing your portfolios, plans, and work in one location, so you can deliver on those business objectives here. So just a quick look back in terms of what we're looking at from a traditional standpoint. So taking a look at Waterfall, the Waterfall methodology. Waterfall, as many of you currently use today based on the poll results, is a relatively linear approach to project management. What you can see here is that you understand that each stage is completed and signed off before the next stage has to begin. So you can see that this is a very rigid yet solid structure. So the pros here are that you do need agreement across all your teams, your customers. It's easier to plan, design, and budget for these sort of projects. But ultimately, what results from waterfall projects is a really long time to value. So very lengthy project life cycles. Customers really lack that visibility in terms of aligning with your business and seeing the project visibility as it is ongoing. Again, really little communication between the groups because this is a very siloed approach, and integrating with systems is very challenging here. Now the question is, how can we all work together? So how can we bring sort of Agile into the picture? So what is Agile here? So Agile is an incremental methodology initially primarily used for software development. So typically stages are conducted in timeframes of 2 to 4 weeks by a collective team. So this is really sort of a team-based approach and team-based methodology. And the pros here are that based on the needs of the customer, you're able to pivot your scope very quickly. So you can go ahead and receive that time to value extremely fast. And because the customer is so involved with the overall project, you have a high degree of ownership, high involvement, and high success. And the cons here are naturally, it can be difficult for companies to adopt, although in sort of the regime shift we're seeing today, companies are adopting it relatively easier than previously. And it does take a company some time to establish that cadence to leverage Agile as well as a possible culture shift, because Agile and all these methodologies are process focused. So it can require sort of a culture shift, a shift in mentality in that regards. So comparing and contrasting sort of that feedback that we took a look at, you can see here that with the traditional waterfall project at the top over here, you'll notice that I have my stage phases. One moves from the next to the next to the next. And then what we'll see in the feedback stage is that below you'll see the Agile methodology, and you'll see Scrum Agile with your iterations. So every 2 weeks, every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the length of your iterations. And we're going to get feedback constantly throughout the entire process lifecycle. So this really provides more alignment with the teams that are doing the development, because they're doing their work for the end users, who are your customers in the end. So you're able to get that minimum viable product, keeping it to keep it moving forward. Now I'm also going to compare and contrast the traditional delivery model and governance model to really see how we can become an agile enterprise. So along the left here, we see some of the sort of traditional linear things that we're familiar with, but then we also see portfolio management as well. We're also able to see how the demand comes in. Then we go through that prioritization. We assign, we plan, and then going to the next process in a pretty linear way. So constantly looking at this in terms of scope, people, and costs. And at the very end, we end up at the production stage. So being able to see that the loop then continues. And you'll notice that within this methodology, we do have pockets of Agile here. So this could be the first step where we see that sort of team-based approach coming into the mix of your waterfall methodology project. So we see specific teams starting to use Agile in a way that does work for them. So they can work in their own environment for whatever works best for them. So the next slide I'm going to be talking about is enterprise agility. So what I'm really talking about here is that all of the other activities we can be doing in the ServiceNow platform as well. So all of our ideas can come in via the ServiceNow platform at the same time, with the same cadence and the exact same schedule. Now, it's not really the way that it always works, but it happens in waves sometimes. So everybody within ServiceNow, as I mentioned earlier, has the ability to participate in sort of this innovation, bring in those new ideas to bring into the workplace on ideas of what we want to do. And we have a way to bring that in one place. So in terms of planning, I can go ahead and move forward. I can move forward and go ahead and plan things out from there. So not just funding portfolios, but funding the concept of strategy here. Because in ServiceNow, we also have investment funding. This can work hand in hand with your portfolio management, but portfolio management tends to be sort of on an annual basis. And investment funding can really work on that wider range and wider scale here. So not only do we have the ability to sort of fund a project, fund a demand or a portfolio, but we also have the ability to fund a product, as well as the ability to fund a value stream as well. So now we're really starting to talk about the ability for us to really get measurable outcomes and value delivered at the very end, when we talk about sort of scaling your enterprise, enabling Agile to aid in that enterprise agility here. And that's just a discussion about stepping beyond sort of the methodologies of sort of waterfall into discussions of things like scaled agile framework. You also notice that we also have the ability to loop in your DevOps solution, because we do offer a DevOps solution. It does integrate with various tools out there like Git, GitHub, Jenkins, and a number of different developer solutions as well. So you can automate that sort of change process as you're moving forward in your Agile lifecycle. Again, that was just a little bit of a discussion in terms of how we're transitioning from sort of that traditional waterfall methodology into our Agile framework, our scaled Agile framework here. So we're going to take a look at how that can help us move towards enterprise agility in the demo later today. And I'm just going to go ahead and set up a precursor to just showcase a couple of the things that we're going to see in terms of what modes of Agile we'll be taking a look at. First mode being Scrum. So this is our product-based approach. It's very team-based, and Scrum works very well on its own for that individual team. So they can operate the way that they like, but if every team is going to operate a little differently, Scrum does have some limitations in that sense. And the iteration knows that its start date, it knows its end date, but no concept of time or money. So that sort of CapEx and OpEx expense there. And Scrum has been very successful at the team level, but we also need to go in a couple of directions. So we want to bring in sort of Scrum into that traditional waterfall project. So in the picture here, along the top, you can see right here, you can see the stage phases coming from my waterfall project. But below, what you'll notice are all of the embedded Scrum inside my my waterfall project. And this really provides us the best of both worlds. So teams can operate the way that they're used to operating, and they don't have to compromise for the people that are used to the more traditional methodology if they would like to stay that way. So things like CapEx, OpEx, time management, project controls, and status can be captured here, all from a single view. So that would be talking more in terms of Scrum and finding ways to scale it. So this is the hybrid approach. And then there's also the Agile answer to scaling the enterprise, which is Scaled Agile Framework. So essentially within Scaled Agile Framework, at the bottom level here, what you'll see here is that sort of same team-based approach, but now our stories are composed of as being part of a feature, and then our features are part of an epic. And we'll see these 3 levels within Scaled Agile Framework later in the demo for today. So just wanted to highlight those 3 phases. And then from there on, we can actually jump straight into the demo real quick. Okay. Log me out. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the demo. Now, ultimately, when you get to sprint execution, you're going to see sort of a sort of classic Kanban board. But what I wanted to go ahead and highlight here is the ability to really turn any sort of ServiceNow process into a visual Kanban. So what we're taking a look at here is the list view in ServiceNow. And I can do some pretty powerful things from some of the core platform features here. So you'll notice that I'm actually in a list of incidents, as you can see from the top left. We're not in the stories just yet. And I can also go ahead and take a look at the specific items that are relevant to me. So if I want to go ahead and filter out for a specific assignment group, let's just say that we want to look at only the incidents related to service desk. I can go ahead and do just that. And using the ServiceNow query builder over here, I can also further navigate into the sort of incident and the incidents themselves and get a more granular approach from that regards. Now, just wanted to highlight that list view, and now we can actually go ahead and drill into the visual task board. So from any list view in ServiceNow, you can create a visual task board. These are just records on a form. And what will populate, if we go ahead and click the hamburger there, a couple of different options, but what we did was drill into the visual task board, that sort of Kanban board that you may be familiar with. And I'm going to go ahead and focus on the state field here. So I'm not in Agile yet. There's a tendency for people to see a Kanban board and then assume that it's Agile. But this is just a list of incidents. So the same way that we were looking at it before, but now I can experience it in a way in terms of collaboration. So I can see who's working on what, filtering out by the top here. So dynamic functionality within the Kanban boards themselves. I can also drive assignment. So I can also assign individuals a primary or additional resource. And then we can also move sort of one incident from one state to the next. And we're actually moving it along the process. So there is sort of that back-end business logic that is powering this Kanban board, this view, so that it's not just going ahead and allowing those permissions to fall through because we're in a Kanban board here, but it does have back-end business logic to support those state changes. Now, another platform feature that I'd like to point out, just a couple of more dynamic capabilities here. We have the ability to configure and customize this sort of view to my liking, add sort of more granular features as well. I can also add swim lane fields, vertical lane fields, as well as more fields that I'd like. I can view all of the users that I'm looking at here that I can go ahead and assign out within this board, as well as add labels and tags from this view as well. So this is just a quick preview of task boards in general. We're going to be sort of seeing this very often in the sort of Agile portion of the demonstration. So I just wanted to go ahead and highlight that really quick so that we get an understanding of how visual task boards really support not only the sort of Agile process and the Agile product, but you have the ability to leverage them throughout the platform. So this is a platform capability in this regard. Let's go ahead. Log me off again. Okay. Okay. So before we get into sort of sprint tracking, planning, my backlog, I wanted to go ahead and just highlight how ServiceNow is a product-based solution. So we're here, we're a product owner for this use case here. And there is product taxonomy. So if we drill into the module for all of the products here, we're able to see exactly what is built out behind each of these application models. So I can drill into, for example, the CRM portal product. And then for that CRM portal, I can see all the releases that are associated, as well as what it's currently a part of, all the themes that it's supporting, the epics, all of the stories that are currently assigned out to this product. And then ultimately, one of the most important things here are all of the teams that are assigned to this product. So here I can see the members of this team here. So drilling into the CRM engineering team. I can see each of the members that are part of this team, as well as all of the specific sprints that are tied in with that this team is working on. So I have the ability to also establish velocity here. So you'll see the group capacity points. So how many points do we expect to be able to accomplish based on an iteration by iteration basis? So when we do get from that sprint planning to sprint execution phase, you'll see where that capacity is really coming into play here. And then now we'll go ahead and jump into the Agile board. Give it a second to load here. And the first thing that we're going to take a look at is the backlog. And so this is all driven. So what I'm seeing here are all of my epics, my related epics. And this is all driven by the top left navigation backlog here. So this determines what we're exactly looking at in the Agile board. So right now we're looking at all of the available epics. But let's just say that we want to go ahead and take a look at all of the epics. We can also do that. What we'll see here are all the all the epics that we can drill into. You can filter out epics by product. So a lot of functionality within the board itself to be able to do some of these things on the left. So let's see here. Get into my other instance here. So yeah, once again, same view, we have all of the available epics here as well. And we can also go ahead and drill down further to be able to create an epic straight from the board itself. And it's worth noting that when I go ahead and create that epic, once we give it another second to load, we'll be able to see some of the key fields that you can also configure to your specific environment. You can assign it to a product. So you're able to assign and delegate those epics out. And if we drill a little bit further, so let's just go back into our core setup here. You can also pull up that sort of that record view straight from the record itself here. Now let's go ahead. You can also configure this sort of program, this board. Oh, go ahead and go to the team here. There we go. We can also go into sort of a team-based approach. So just drilling into sort of what stories are out there available within not only our backlog. So what we're looking at here is the entire backlog here. So it's worth noting that if I go ahead and what we're taking a look at here is very similar to what we were looking at before. We have some key KPIs at the top of the top navigation bar. We can go ahead and see that these are also filterable. So just being able to see exactly, well, which stories do have no story points, which stories have all the records in total, which stories have no acceptance criteria. Very similarly, exactly sort of which portal are we looking at, so we can filter these out by epic. And again, we can also go ahead and create a story from this view from the board itself. And we can see here that becoming a story, you can become a story and in many ways. So it may come in from an incident that comes in, or maybe it's not an incident. And then it ultimately transitions into the backlog. So we can also go ahead and see that backlog. If I take out that filter, move that filter. So we can see that overall backlog, and we're able to go ahead and drag and drop our backlog items across from each other. And then I can also go ahead and filter out for specifically what is the HR core setup working on, what is the HR knowledge management working on. A lot of flexibility here. And then you'll notice something on the right here. We also have the ability to triage. So right now, we'll go ahead and just take a look at the triage board. So when I go ahead and take a look at my triage board for all of the defects out there, so here I can see all of the sort of non-story related records in ServiceNow and bring it into that same Agile backlog. So what we've seen with a lot of customers over the years that this can get resolved immediately as it comes in. Again, you have your problem, you have your change and so forth, but you also maybe have a defect. So it can go to some other third-party Agile solution where it works, and then at some point we've got to come back to ServiceNow and then let us know that we've addressed that. So here we're really circumventing that process. We can do it directly here. And in ServiceNow, in the unified backlog, let's just say that I want to take a look at the all the defects that I have come into the stories here. I'm able to see the list of defects, and I'll go ahead and return to that backlog here. I can see that that I can add defects in into my backlog as I create them within that triage board. So just a lot of flexibility within the sprint planning board, being able to work with other parts of the platform, from your incidents to your problems to your changes. Now moving right along. So if I move over to the CRM engineering team here, I can see all of the iterations that are lined up by sprint here. So sprint 5, 6, 7, 8. And I need to go ahead and create a new sprint or a new iteration needed. So just go ahead and create this, click this create button. You'll go ahead and see that the naming convention is just that literal string of the group that we're working in, followed by sprint, and then the duration here. So we just had the last iteration was 8, so we have 9. You'll also notice that the dates that we're actually taking a look at are looking at that same duration. So what we're starting off with, so from previous iterations or previous sprints, using that same iteration length, but going ahead and starting from when that last iteration ends. And you'll also notice that what we have here from our story points, we'll see that we have an iteration here that I have 32 story points out of 30 points of capacity. So this is in regards to that sort of capacity, those capacity points that we were talking about earlier, and we're currently at 106%. Well, how can we go ahead and diagnose this? So we can go ahead and go into our sort of sprint, and we'll take out one of the stories from this specific sprint and move it over to another sprint. And what you'll notice at the top right here, the capacity has gone ahead and adjusted itself so that now we are within that sort of that range that we want to be in. And this is really where we're now it's just that we're focusing on the team and we're working with their planning, and now we can go ahead and sort of be into the tracking phase of your sprint lifecycle. So all of those features that we saw in the backlog also persist here. All of the features that we saw earlier within the Kanban boards also persist here. So we can go ahead and see that that Kanban view are really familiar in sprint execution. So just like I saw in the list of incidents, here I can use this to understand who's working on what, as well as moving my stories from one phase to the next. So we're still enforcing that same business logic in the backend. So moving one story from one phase to the next, but displayed in this visual task board manner. And I can also drive this by assignment, by the specific users. I can filter out for them. So we're looking at Scrum on a sort of team-based level. Now, if I go ahead and flip to the program level, so switching over to the Scrum at the program level here. So at the top left of the board, you can see there's a team view and a program view. So I have an aggregated way of seeing how the teams are really working together. So along the left, I can see all of the teams that are part of this Scrum program. I can see the dependencies, or I can hide those dependencies as well. I'll notice that this dependency may not be fully working because it's highlighted in red. You can see the dependencies that I have from one iteration to the next. So this is a core dependency here. And with these stories, I can move stories around. And the other thing we're doing in the planning stage for the program is really around calculating capacity. So in the same way that we were at the team level, what we were doing is calculating. This is where we're going to calculate our capacity as well. So going ahead, let me just see if I can drill into this. Okay, then. So this is just essentially what I want to highlight, this sort of program view. We saw sort of the different sort of views that we do have in the Agile board. We saw the backlog, we saw the sprint planning, the sprint tracking. So we saw sort of what this is called is what I like to say is phase one of the Agile methodology. And we're going to take a look at phase two now. So really taking a look at sort of that hybrid methodology now. So we're going to go ahead and switch switch personas here. Now we're currently logged in as Paul Martin, who is a project manager. And you can see that I'm logged in into my project workspace view. So this is my project workspace. And each of these cards that I'm seeing here is a project that I'm assigned. I can see some of the high level information on each of the project cards. So some things like the status, the percentage complete, what phase it's on, sort of those RIDE Act updates, so your risks, issues, actions, or delayed tasks, as well as any of those missed milestones as well. And these cards are configurable as well. So if I wanted to go ahead and express different metadata, I can go ahead and configure those options as well. So let's drill into one of the projects here to take a look at how we can showcase that hybrid methodology we were talking about. And the way we navigate a project are through the tabs at the top over here. What we're looking at here is the project console. So I can drill into any of these tabs and they'll all give me a sort of different approach and different view into the specific project we're working on. Kicking things off with the analytics tab. So the analytics is simply a dashboard. It's what we're seeing right now. Details, it's going to be that form view with all the metadata that's driving the process forward. It's the data that's really powering all of the other tabs within the console itself. Planning is my work breakdown structure. Resources is where we're going to have resource management, as well as financials for your CapEx and OpEx your CapEx and OpEx management, as well as an overarching dynamic status report. So we're going to take a look at all of these today. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at first the analytics here. What we have here is a ServiceNow dashboard. We have a very configurable and dynamic dashboard. We can see some of these key KPIs that are dynamic by nature. I can drill into them so I can evaluate sort of what sort of metadata is this report made out of. And I can also configure this dashboard to my liking. So if I want to go ahead and see the overdue tasks and milestones, I can do that. But I can also add other reports as well. So time cards, time card exceptions, what's pending from a project management perspective. So that's all what I can do within my dashboard view here. So here I can go ahead and drill into the details tab. I can see my, let's see here. So I can see my assignment to portfolio. So talking about that sort of project and portfolio management approach. And this is really important here because we're talking about the concept of a hybrid project. So we have the product that we're working in because this is a hybrid project. And are we running the business of changing the business here? So give me 1 second here. And then as we move along within this sort of project view that we're working in, we're also taking a look at some of the other key components. So if we take a look at the bottom here, we see all of the project tasks. We can see all of the core dependencies. We can see all of the core dependencies that are tied in with this specific project. And we can also highlight some of the story components that are associated with this specific project. So taking a look at the story components, we'll notice that because this is a hybrid project, we'll see that all of the stories here are in the development phase. We'll see all of the various sprints that they're associated with. All of this information is captured within the details tab itself. And going back into that sort of project task view, we can take a look at all of the sort of dependencies and see how they are correlated from one task to the next. So you'll see that you can create dependencies based on dates, and you can also create dependencies based on other key components as well. Let's move on from details into the project execution here. So here we'll see, go ahead. So here we're seeing a sort of traditional waterfall project. And I can see that I have my, oh, 1 second. There we go. So here I see my traditional waterfall project displayed in a Gantt view. So I can see that I have all my tasks. I can break them down into subordinate tasks, or we can drive assignment. So we can see all the dependencies that are out there. So drilling into one of the dependencies here. So I'll just also point out that we also have all 4 dependency types. You can go ahead and create those sort of dependencies from your various project tasks. You can also create them from the view itself. So dragging and dropping sort of that relationship from there as well. And this is all embedded into the system. 1 second here. One second here. Okay, sorry about that. Now we also, just going back into the dependencies here, we also support lead and lag time. I just wanted to highlight that as well. And then in the middle of this project, you also notice that we have sort of those those states, the planned start and planned duration, as well as more key components. And you can expand this as much as you'd like. You can go ahead and filter out for specific sort of key metrics on the cog over on the left. And you'll notice in the middle here, what we have is actually an external dependency. So this is an Agile Dev Project external dependency. You'll notice that there are 2 sort of dependencies here, one being Agile. So you have your development, you have your Agile phases, and I can create as many Agile phases as I want within this sort of project. So as you move forward in your Agile journey, as each organization is moving forward, we're going to have some teams that have their culture, they have their way of doing things in place, or you'll have a team that maybe wants to go through trial by fire. So they'll try embedding this sort of Agile team in this sort of project in a week with no training, for instance. So you can look to isolate sort of those key Agile projects so that neither team, your waterfall team or your Agile development team, needs to compromise. They can all really move forward on that journey together. So let's take a look at that. Since we're talking about the concept of Agile and sort of embedded that into the system, what provides a better view is the project workbench here. So looking at that exact same work breakdown structure that we saw before, my summary level tasks. So we go ahead and drill into the initiating phase. I see all of the sort of project start date and end date, the percentage complete. And now I'm seeing stories. And now I'm seeing stories that are part of a sprint. So if I go ahead and drill down into the development phase, I can see all of the points associated to each of the stories. And since it's from here, I can also start to marry together that sort of visual task board concept that we were talking about earlier as well. So same thing as we saw in the instance. This is really that platform feature that we were talking about. So when we were talking about Scrum execution as well. Now I can see this in this visual collaborative experience, whether it's traditional or the development tasks that I'm working on. And this is where it becomes the design decision of our customers, where they can have their Agile teams that have never seen more than just the execution or the iteration that they're working in, the sprint that they're working in, because they don't need to be concerned with exactly what is the overall scope of the project, but they can just focus on what they need to do within their own iteration here. So they don't need to be concerned with other things like formal resource management or formal financial management. And although there are others within other phases of the project that may be concerned with that, everybody's more than welcome to use both parts of the methodology. But what we see really often is people like to work in their own environment and what they're comfortable with. So it just makes more sense to be able to provide users with what they want to work in. So before I go ahead and leave the project view here, I'll go ahead and just touch on resource management as well as financial management.
Hey, and Jeremy, this is Deborah. I just wanted to cue in, let you know we've got about 5 minutes till the top of the hour, 6 minutes. All right.
Okay. Yep. No problem.
Thank you.
So just really quickly jumping into our resource finder here. This is just the capability to be able to drill into all of the various resources that we have, showcase exactly sort of what resources are available out there in the system. We can confirm and allocate them. So either a soft or hard allocation based on your resource manager. And this is just all done from that same centralized view in your resources tab. And then your financials tab for your CapEx and OpEx expenditures. So being able to see the total budget, actual cost, and overall plan return from the overall landscape of the project. And last but not least, a dynamic and updated status report that showcases some key KPIs within your project for your HR service management project, driving key information for your business executives so they can make decisions based on this report. And you can export this to various forms as well, PDF, Excel. So very, very flexible in that regards. So just jumping right into the last part of what we wanted to talk about here. This is really around our skilled agile framework. So we do only have a couple of minutes left here. I do apologize for running a little bit behind schedule, but just wanted to take a quick look at what we're at skilled agile framework. But it is really the same core concept of what we were looking at here before. What ServiceNow offers is both essential SAFe as well as portfolio SAFe. So you can see here that jumping into the ServiceNow instance, we do have that sort of same Kanban board that we were looking at here. We can also go ahead and drill into the backlog of what we're working on. But the difference here is that we're working based on either the portfolio, the agile release train, so based on my specific team of teams, or on the underlying team level. So if we go ahead and take a look at, we'll just go ahead and drill into the agile release train level. The same view that we were looking at before, being able to view all of the, filter out by all of the epics, create those program increments. And once I move through sort of my process that I have in place, I can go ahead and also see that amongst my program increment, I can add things to the backlog. So doing a lot of sort of that agile work within the skilled agile framework board itself. You'll also see the weighted shortest, with the WSGIF, the weighted shortest job first score. So this is where we're calculating sort of that weighted shortest job first score in the very right here within the SAFe feature record. So just wanted to highlight sort of the capabilities within the SAFe board, as well as the planning capabilities that we have as well. So very similar view, except we have all of the teams on our left-hand side across our various sprints. And you can see that all of them are aligned. So all of the teams are working in the same program increment at the same time. ensuring that they're all aligned as we move along through our process here. So with that, I just wanted to go ahead and wrap things up. Just a really short overview of our SAFe capabilities. So of course, that pretty much concludes the demo portion, and just really wrapping up how management can really enable enterprise agility. So the ability for us to really have all these different workflows, all these different work streams in one place. This gives us the ability to align it and make sure that we're working on the right initiatives that we're creating value for the business. And we're all working in one place, so we have the ability to manage that uncertainty and do adaptive planning. So the flexibility of using all these different methodologies, the ability to allow people to work the way they want to work is really what we're doing, and the ability of the ServiceNow platform. And that really wraps things up. I do apologize for running over time. If we do have any questions that do come in, I'll be happy to answer them if you go ahead and just post them in the Q&A box. And Deborah, that pretty much concludes things for me. So I'll just go ahead and toss it back to you. Sorry for the running a little over time here.
Awesome. No, thanks, Jeremy, for that wonderful presentation and your great demo. And I was just thinking, weighted shortest job first. It would be a funny riddle having to say it 3 times fast. I have troubles with it. It was a really insightful look at all the benefits that you can gain by moving from traditional project management approaches to agile methodologies. And in our last few minutes, I'd just like to point out our resource list for additional information on ServiceNow Agile Solution. It includes links to an overview of the ServiceNow Agile Management Solution, our Agile Management Solutions data sheet, and a brief video introducing the ServiceNow Agile 2.0 application. We've also provided a link to our community site where you can find more information and collaborate with others on ServiceNow Agile 2.0 and other ITBM solutions. And in closing, I'd like to remind everyone that you'll be able to access this webinar and all Now community webinars on demand at community.servicenow.com. And Jeremy, if you can advance just to that last slide so we can see, we'll just go on. We've run out of time for the questions, but just that very last slide where it has the link to the community site. And when you're here, if you go to community.servicenow.com, please do subscribe to our IT Business Management Forum on the Now community, where you'll see our featured ITBM content, as well as links to any other upcoming webinars, including a repeat of today's topic every Wednesday in March. You'll also have access to our Last Thursdays with ITBM webinar series. On the last Thursday of every month, we'll be presenting a live ITBM webinar and demo. The title of our next webinar on Thursday, March 26th is Orlando Overview, What's New in ITBM in the ServiceNow Orlando release. And we encourage you to register for that webinar. And that's all we have for today. Thank you all for joining us.